This is Mango Chutneyson, the world's #1 chess player, and the gap between him and everyone else right now is astronomically huge. Games like this really exemplify it. His opponent is Shant Sargsyan, an absolute blitz beast, rated over 3,100 on chess.com. They played each other in Title Tuesday, an online weekly elite chess event. This was the late tournament, and this is just 30 moves of pummeling. Let's see how he gets absolutely buried. First, we get the English opening, played by the Armenian against the Norwegian, and some thought this was a mouse slip. Magnus plays pawn f5. The Dutch defense here, lifting the king's kill, always risky. No one plays it at this elite level. Now we see pawn g3 building the banana hammock. Magnus develops, and usually you see a knight popped on f3 or the pawn advancing to stop black doing this. But the bishop instead tucks into bed, and it allows Magnus to erect that big black center. Huge space gain for him. Both these ponies now develop into the game, and we see pawn a3 looking to expand before Magnus can say Kramnik's your crazy uncle. We see a5 played in response. e3 now looks to develop the knight, pushing the center. Is Magnus going to go with this one? Playable, but no. He goes with this one, looking for a kind of Leningrad Dutch setup. Now we see the knight develop, bishop g7 and rook b1 carries on with the plans, especially now the bishop left this diagonal. Now we see castles, pawn d3, d6 and b4. Magnus can get too cozy. We see the pawn push, beautiful undulating pawn structure there, like the rolling foothills of Armenia. That is a real thing. I checked it out with Ask Jeeves. Now we see takes, pawn recaptures, and does Magnus completely forget which way his pieces are supposed to move? Well, no. He anticipates this pawn push, which would have hit his knight, and he sees that there's pressure from the bishop, so he now goes pawn to c6, looking to blunt the bishop. You know, if captures, takes back, the knight holds things together, you're doing okay. So we didn't see that one played. Could have been though. We see castles instead. Magnus now develops that bishop b2, natural stuff, queen d7, and now we see the open lane challenged by Shant. He shan't be phased as he faces the world #1. What's the big plan here for black? We'll say you push in the center, looks natural, doesn't actually help you that much. There's some weak dark squares here. Knight a4 immediately highlights it, you know, looking to pick something up right if you're not careful. Hard to defend against it all. So instead, Magnus holds the ship steady in the center and plays the epic pawn g5. Andrea starts spinning the beats. This is where the attack's now going to come from. So instructive. Queen b3 connects these rooks, and look at how the board is cut in half. You know, Shant is playing like Alexander the Great, who didn't come from that far from Armenia. He's sweeping around, trying to encircle the army, distract them, then charge through the center. Meanwhile, Magnus of Constantinople is looking to go through the center with all his forces. Which strategy will prevail? Well, first Magnus pushes this foot soldier here, and of course it's the move to play. You open all the pieces, you don't shut things down like with this horrible pawn push. So after this f4 move, how to respond? We see takes, rook recaptures, and this is now really instructive because it wasn't played, but this is one of the best ways to respond to the attack. First take, open the e-file. Now let's say pawn recaptures, and it's that knight a4 idea, looking at the dark squares. So let's say the rook moves, and now how do you meet a kind of flank central-ish attack here? But let's call it a bit of a flank attack. Well, you counter in the center where your pieces are stronger. This is one sample line of takes, and now knight g4 to try and get that big attack going, but you can take in the center. Take with the pawn, the knight jumps. So let's say you do this and this, sample line, but now you've got a square for your knight to go to defend on. There's ideas of jumping, taking, you know, white's got real counterplay and the king's surviving. So that's how you should have played, but not done. We get rook a1. Now we see captures, bishop takes back, and bishop h3. Magnus just preparing for the kill now. We get takes on c6, pawn recaptures. Yes, there is a check invasion, but after king f7, again Shant goes wrong here. Taking best, looking for the central counterplay, but he wants to resurrect this dead guy in the corner. Franken bishop is crying over there, but this is the moment. Magnus Carlsen just draws deep, pictures those epic basketball faces that he used to pull back in the day. It's a great way to actually freak your opponent out. Just pull one at the board for a microsecond. They won't be sure if they actually saw you pull such a face. Who would possibly do that at the board? Great way to get in their head. Magnus does it here at his computer or laptop and then takes the bishop off the board. King recaptures. What's the follow-up source here? How do you actually bring the heat? Very well done if you can see the move. The idea is pawn f3 check. And of course you're forking king and knight. So the king is obliged to take. What's now the follow-up move? Ignore my arrows. I'm just going for some bamboozly distraction like Peter Lecco. But just to give a sense of where are the ideas, what's the move here? Well, the way you go is queen h3. Really nice.
Mushrooms.
Because you cut the escape of the king. You pressure a pawn, but actually that's not so much the point. The big thing now is that this is a threat. g4, check, and mate. So therefore the knight moves out the way to give the king some room. But again, how do we stick with the themes here? We know the king can't come here, can't come here, can't come here, it can't come here. So how do we create this same trap for the king? Queen f1, that's beautiful. Takes away that flight square, still controls this one. Again, g4 checkmate is now a threat, therefore g4 pushed to stop it. h5 renews the threat. Now we see h3 to stop it once more, and we see Magnus spin this knight around. The quickest checkmate was actually with this takes move. Really cool line, because after takes with check, we've established the king has to take. Well, it could go to here, but then you check from here. So takes, now check. You scurry the king up the board. It's forced to take here and pick your way to finish it. Either bishop move works. That's a checkmate. So that was one nice line. Whoops, that one. But Magnus instead rotates, looking to check from h4. Now we see pawn e4 to give the king some room. And after captures with check, pawn takes back is played. Technically, you should actually run straight away. But okay, great. Then this pawn's running all over. All roads lead to online victory. Pawn takes was played. Check, and wherever you go you're dead. If you come this way, not played, this is a checkmate in one. And if we run to the game here, king e3 was played. Well, now Magnus can check here, and we saw resignation. Now you can block with a knight, either knight. Does that not save the day? Well, no. There's a checkmate in one finish. Can you find the move here? Well done if you can see it. It's knight takes on g4, check and mate. All of the feces plowing into the attack at this stage. The king's boxed in, also by its own pieces, dead as a dodo. Beautiful game by Magnus, 30 move crush with a Dutch, love it. And he went on to actually win the event, 10 out of 11, awesome. If you want to see another epic game played in this very same event, then have a look at the video on screen, and I hope to see you again soon. Cheers.